Welcome to myThesis, McGill University's new thesis examination management system. This video will give you a quick tour of myThesis and offer instructions on how to use it. Please note, this video is intended for graduate students in PhD or Master's with Thesis programs. myThesis is an electronic dashboard connected to myProgress, McGill's online degree evaluation tool. McGill graduate students in research degrees will use myThesis to notify their supervisors in advance of their intent to submit their thesis, to nominate thesis examiners, and for their initial thesis submission. myThesis is a useful tool for several reasons. It allows students, supervisors, and unit heads to track the progress of examiner nominations and initial thesis submission approvals. An email notification system alerts the student, supervisors, and unit heads when needed of approvals along the path, as well as requests for changes. myThesis also helps with the streamlining of approvals related to examiners and the initial thesis submission package, as you can see in the image to the right. Finally, units can invite examiners directly through the myThesis tool. Examiners will receive links to accept or decline invitations, and units will be notified once they have done so. Without further ado, let's get started. Graduate students should log into myThesis through the GPS website. Once you log in, you will arrive on this page. Your thesis record will appear here. The first step of the initial thesis submission is notifying your supervisor through myThesis using the Intent to Submit Thesis page. We ask that students complete this page approximately 2 months before the expected thesis submission date. This action will also launch your initial thesis submission process. You will be able to set your deadline for your initial thesis submission and see the deadline for submitting your nomination of examiners for your thesis evaluation. Let's look at how to complete this page. To access your student record, you click on a row with your information. You will land on the Intent to Submit Thesis page. At the top of the page, you will see the progress bar, which shows steps from the intent to submit thesis to your initial thesis submission approvals. Your first action on this page is to review the instructions, which include information on completing the page. The student instructions provide you with important notes about when to submit this page, your registration, communications with your supervisor, and thesis submission deadlines. You can find this information in our guidebook as well. Your next step is to review the information we have on file for you. The first box features your student information. You should access the information on record in your unofficial transcript and degree audit on myProgress as well. The links are in blue. If you click on them, myThesis will open the links in new tabs on your browser. It is important to ensure that the information on file is accurate and that you are registered in your program. If any information is incorrect or if you have questions, you should contact your graduate program contact in your unit. Click on Save Draft at the bottom of the screen and come back to submit this form once the updates are complete. If the information is correct, click on the check box. You then want to check the information about your supervisors and your committee. Once again, any errors should be communicated to your graduate unit. If the information is correct, tick off the box. Once your information is verified and confirmed, you can move to the next section, the Intent to Submit Thesis. Skip past the Thesis Status bar. This is a notification bar that informs you of the status of your thesis submission process. You will then want to start with the expected submission date. The expected thesis submission date is an approximate one, allowing a flexibility of 2 weeks after the date you indicate to submit your thesis. You may update your intended submission date up until the time you submit your thesis for examination. However, revising your expected submission date after the examiners have been secured is not advised, as it may impact their ability. When you click on a field, a calendar appears. You can provide your expected submission date for the initial thesis. Once you do this, your predicted graduation term shows up. This is not a confirmation of your graduate term, it's an approximate one. The nomination of examiners required by date is your deadline to submit your examiner nominees. It automatically appears when you enter your submission date. It is important to respect this date to ensure that there are no delays in the process. Finally, if your thesis requires a confidential process, please indicate so here. At any point, if you want to know more about each field, you can click on the information icon. Next, you have sections for your thesis title, English abstract, and French abstract. The thesis title and English abstract should be ready to submit to the examiners by the time you complete your nomination of examiners form. This page can be updated at that time if necessary. The French abstract is optional for the initial thesis submission. However, it is required by the time you submit your final version. Finally, you want to include the estimated number of pages and language of thesis below. At any point, if you want to know more about each field, click on the information icon. Your final step prior to submitting this page is reading your student declaration. Then you click Submit and your supervisors will receive a notification through myThesis. A pop-up will let you know that your action was successful. Once your intent to submit thesis page is complete and submitted, your next step is to complete your nomination of examiners page. This is where master's students will recommend a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 4 potential examiners. Doctoral candidates will propose 2 potential internal examiners and 2 to 4 externals. On this page, the instruction tabs can provide useful guidelines for how to proceed. Please keep in mind our instructions for students, supervisors, and unit heads. As a student, you can focus on the instructions intended for you. Now let's say I'm a master's student and I want to add my 2 nominees. I will click on Search Add. A pop-up box will appear. I will enter the email of the first nominee that my supervisor and I have chosen. If the person is in our system, their name will appear. Click on the plus side under Add. You will know it works when you see Examiner added. If you are done, click on the X to close the pop-up. If you want to search for another person, you can do so as well. If you entered a name and no one is recorded in the system, you will want to select Add New Examiner to provide basic contact information on this person. First, provide a title, first and last name, email, and phone number. Then click on Address. You can now input the address to which a copy of your thesis would be mailed to if required. When done, click Save. You will see the following box showing your examiner was successfully added to the examiner repository. Click on the X to close. When you are back to the Search Examiners box, you can click X to close it. Your added examiners will appear here. Doctoral candidates, your interface will look slightly different than what is shown. You will have 2 sections, one for internal examiners and one for externals. Read the student declaration at the bottom of the screen and click on Submit for approval when you are ready. Click your primary supervisor will receive a notification through myThesis. What will happen next is both your primary supervisor and unit head will review your thesis record and approve your proposed list of nominees. If they request changes, you will receive a notification through myThesis. If the list is approved, the unit head will invite required examiners. If all examiners accept, you will receive a notification that you may submit your initial thesis for examination on the platform. If you have received the notifications that you can submit your initial thesis, you can go ahead and do so on myThesis at any point prior to your expected thesis submission date. Under extenuating circumstances, you can change this date after your examiners have been approved, but this is not encouraged. It could delay your thesis examination process. On this page, you are asked to upload your thesis by clicking the green button that says Upload Files. If you need assistance, you can access the instructions at the top right-hand side of the screen. Here, you can choose to drag and drop your thesis file, or you can click to select a document from a folder on your computer. As you can see here, you will need to choose your file type, which can be your thesis, or supplemental information, like audio or video files or spreadsheets. You can add a description if you wish. Select Upload once you are done. Repeat the process if you have more supplemental files. Otherwise, read your student declaration and click Submit for approval. A pop-up notification will advise you that you have successfully submitted your initial thesis for examination. The process is not over yet. Your supervisors, unit head, and GPS must approve your thesis package before sending it to an examiner. You can track this on your myThesis dashboard. The status will show on your right. Please note that once the thesis proceeds to the examination stage, no further action will be required on the platform. MyThesis will also not reflect updates on the examination process after GPS approves this thesis for evaluation. Thank you for listening.